Why did you come here, Worf?
If you had found your father, you would have found only dishonor.
If he had been captured, as you were, if I had found him here, I would be glad to see him. There is no room in my heart for shame.
I can only hope that if my son came here, he would be Klingon enough to kill me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fully Functional, a Team G podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are veteran Trekkies, and Dory is a rookie Trekkie, and we are taking her on her first journey through Star Trek: The Next Generation. Today we're talking about the Season 6 episode, Birthright Part 2. The original air date is February 27th, 1993. And as always, we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Okay, so the Klingons were defending an outpost on the perimeter. Oh, we basically pick up basically where we left off. Klingons are defending an outpost on the perimeter. The Romulans took out their shields. Next blast rendered them unconscious when... Oh, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Dory.
I was like, what did I write this? What am I reading? Okay, this is what had happened, how they got captured. Mm-hmm. Okay, listen, I'm caught up. We're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next blast rendered the Klingons unconscious. When they woke up, they were prisoners, unarmed and shackled, interrogated for 3 months. They tried to starve themselves, but the Romulans kept them alive. The Romulan commander Tukoth?
Yeah, Tukoth.
They say his name 50 billion times, and still correct. I'm like, how? Tukoth thought that he was being kind. The Romulans hoped to trade their lives for territorial concessions, but the Klingon High Council refused to negotiate. They would not acknowledge that their warriors had been taken prisoner, and when it was clear they would be of no use to them, Tukoth offered to let them go, but they knew that their families believed they had died in battle, so they did not wish to return to dishonor them. They asked Tukoth to let them stay, and he took pity on them, and that's what happened on Glee. Okay, so Worf is like, yeah, I want to like preserve your family's honor and everything, but like you as prisoners, your honor is like pretty busted at this point, you guys. So, no really honor in remaining prisoners. And I just wrote, take a shot every time someone says honor in this episode.
Yeah.
You will be deceased so quickly. Okay, so there's this old guy, Klingon, who we met in the last episode, who they do not say his name, as far as I can remember, until like 3/4 into this episode. His name is Lakor. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to remember that because I just wrote old guy a bunch of times. But now that I know, his name,
that's a fine honorable name.
Yeah, I think they do reference his name, but like not while he's in the room, so you can't like associate
okay, because I did not catch any of it until like near the end. But okay, so Lacora's like, Worf, why did you come here? If you found your dad, you would be dishonored. And then Worf says, oh, this is nice. Worf's like, if he had been captured as you were, if I had found him here, I would be glad to see him. There is no room in my heart for shame. And I was like, oh, Worf, that's very nice. Mm-hmm. And then I almost said old guy.
The guy shoots him down real hard.
He goes, I can only hope that if my son came here, he would be Klingon enough to kill me. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so now the next day, Worf sees like this kid gardening, and I totally thought he was going to help him garden. Mm-hmm. But instead, Worf scolds him about using a weapon to garden. And it looks like this kid's been told lies. I don't know. So the kid tells Worf that, we also don't find his name until a little bit later, but his name is Talk. But he tells Worf that his family left because of the war. The war.
Yeah, generic.
And
the war.
Worf's like, what war? So then like we see I wrote we see the Lady of the Lake from last episode just hanging out against a wall waiting for Worf
just
to pass by.
Around.
And yeah, we do learn her name is Belle. And she's like, aren't you happy to have escaped the war? And their parents came there to raise families in peace. And she thought that like he would be happy to be like safe place. And Worf goes, a place can be safe and still be a prison. Yeah. And she's like, well, I can do whatever I want. And Worf's like, ask your dad if you can leave and see the Klingon homeworld. And then get back to me on, you can do whatever you want. And then she's like, why? It's dangerous out there. And Worf's like, not anymore. So Worf is stuck now in the compound. So like, she won't be seeing him. She's like, oh yeah, so you're like stuck here, so you won't be seeing me at the pond again. Too bad, so sad. I just put like a sad face in my notes. I guess that's for Worf. I don't know. So Worf's homing device from Shrek is beeping, and Worf opens a panel in his quarters, starts to like fuck around with some stuff in the wall, but then is interrupted by Tokath, and he's coming to see him. And Tokath says, I can return later if I'm disturbing you. Worf and says, it is a strange thing when the jailer concerns himself with his prisoner's comfort. And Tokath goes, mine is a strange prison. Yeah. So Tokath says that like when shit went down back in the day, like everyone hated each other, but then he informed the Klingon High Command. He informed the High Command, I guess the Romulan High Command, that the Klingons wanted to remain there, and he was told like unless he basically became their permanent babysitter, they would all be killed. So he gave up his military career to be a full-time babysitter. And that's where the Romulans and Klingons, they, live in perfect...
It's interesting that clearly he thinks that's a very noble thing to have done.
Oh, this man is on the highest horse.
I mean, the episode is about characters who think that they've done what's best.
Yeah. Because, because I think as, I could sympathize that, even though I know it's, their culture and all that stuff, I wouldn't be able to, kill them because I think it's wrong.
This episode, I think, did a really good job of making you sympathize with both sides of this argument. But anyway, sorry, Dory, continue.
Yeah. The Romulans live in perfect peace and harmony, and he's not gonna let Worf fuck that up. And Worf's like, I've been here 5 minutes, and I can tell everyone hates it here. And Tokath is like, really? Because my Klingon wife is super happy. And Worf's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And Worf just kind of now skulks around in his turtleneck.
in his sweater suit.
I guess it's a onesie.
It's a one-piece sweater.
But it's it's a grown-up onesie because it's in black.
Yeah. It's his
his sneaking
it's
onesie.
His sneaking outfit, yeah.
Yeah. So Worf then he fucks around with some stuff by barrels, and then he walks away because he hears singing, and then a distraction occurs, which is basically explosion at the barrels, and then Worf tries to escape. He gets over the wall and actually runs.
Okay,
in the
wait,
forest
no,
and
sorry.
finds
He
Shrek
does
in the
not run in the
shuttle.
forest.
Oh,
he stops, looks at the camera, looks around the general area a bunch of times, then he moves on to the next set, stops, looks around a bunch of times, looks at the camera, and he does this 3 times.
Listen, Worf in the jungle is honestly pretty funny.
Yeah.
Worf's the real Rumble in the jungle.
Okay. Because he finds Shrek in the shuttle, and it would just in time to get tackled by the gardening kid to Talk. and gets like phasers put to his head. So sorry,
actually, a mild background corner interjection. There was supposed to be a bunch more Shrek in this episode, but James Cromwell broke his leg in between the episodes.
Oh,
yeah, and they weren't able to
episodes?
do the shots with him that they wanted to do, so they just ended up kind of writing his dialogue out.
That's wild. Back on the Enterprise, Picard is like, oh, Worf has failed to arrive for their scheduled rendezvous. He's 12 hours overdue. Picard and Riker are like, oh, I sure hope Shrek reported his flight plan. And I wrote, no, he didn't. Of course he didn't. He did. Surprisingly, Shrek did file a flight plan.
Oh.
I was surprised. Yeah, they say it later. That he did file one, and that's how they were
so
able to
weird.
figure some stuff out.
Yeah, he's not a very good information
sure
smuggler.
He did. Yeah, I was like, sure he did.
Yeah.
Shrek's not good at his job. Okay, so back in the planet, Worf is injected with a tracker, and Talk is assigned to be Worf's personal babysitter. And Worf is, free to go around the compound, but, he should not cause trouble. So Worf starts to do the Machbara, which is what I have previously referred to as
Tai Chi.
calisthenics, and I love when he does this.
Yeah.
I love it. I love this is like a thing of Worf that, I really enjoy. And he does this multiple times in this episode, and I'm a big fan of this. So he starts to do the Machbara, and I just love, there's a shot, Worf is doing it by himself. He's in this courtyard, and there's, a bunch of other Klingons around him. One guy in the background is staring at him and looks like he's trying to figure out the moves. And it's just one guy for, a chunk of the time, and then slowly everyone else starts to kind of join in and copy Worf. But I do love this one guy really struggling to figure it out.
I like how you said he's in, this courtyard, and I'm like, Dory, it's the only set. They're just shooting the same set from different angles.
Yeah, it's a courtyard. The courtyard. Mm-hmm. So Talk tries to stop Worf, but Worf takes him down and then helps him back up and invites him to join the Machbara, but Talk is not into it. He's not happy. Okay, so then Bael, who's Lady of the Lake, she brings Worf to her home and shows him the forbidden Klingon items.
Yeah, forbidden items, eh?
And and so then Bael's mom, though, she finds them and she kicks Worf out. Mm-hmm. And so Worf then he's telling fireside tales of there's a bunch of the Klingons hanging around a campfire, basically, or just a fire pit, and he's telling them stories. He's got a captive audience. Lakar comes in and he breaks up the story time. And I wrote, Bael better not go for Worf. Worf, keep it in your pants. God, I hate this.
Yeah.
I hate it. It's not the worst, but it's not great. Okay. So then Bael, she goes over to Worf and she's like, did the hero in the story take a mate? And Worf's just does not blink, and he just stares at her and goes, that's another story.
Yeah.
So they're very close to each other, and then Worf puts his hand in her hair, but his hatred for the Romulans is stronger than how horny he is, and he realizes that she is part Romulan.
I mean, call it what it is. It's racism.
Whoops. Yes. Yeah. Worf's prejudice was showing a lot in this episode, and I love later he's like, what? Mm-hmm. But we'll get to that after. So Bael is Tokov's kid. So Worf is like, how could your mom bone a Romulan? They suck so much. And Worf's like, your dad was part of the wars. Ask your parents for the truth. It very much felt like, those old teen movies of that rebellious 90s boyfriend or whatever who's like, talk to your parents and tell the truth. I don't know. It was very Worf was like interesting this episode. Oh yeah, so then now I wrote, oh surprise, Shrek did submit flight plans, plot twist. So the Enterprise, they realize this, and then they decide to go towards the closer Romulan location to try to find Worf. So Worf goes to see Bael to apologize, and it literally takes 1 second until he immediately insults her. He apologizes and then 1 second later insults her because he's like, I shouldn't have treated you like that. It's not your fault. You're basically a monster.
Like, okay, to be fair, he's tripping over himself trying to explain it. But what it comes down to is that Worf is prejudiced and he's not going to apologize for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, he's going to apologize, but then immediately fuck it up again and then say something rude.
No. He's apologizing for offending her. He's not apologizing for being prejudiced.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Agreed. So then she's like, you were really into me until you're like, you found my ears. But Worf is, I wrote, Worf is really going to hold on to his prejudices and never let go. Mm-hmm. So he watches, this is another scene. So Worf like watches the teens play with hoops and sticks, and he's like, amateurs.
Yeah.
And takes one of the sticks that has an extremely sharp side and throws it through a moving hoop. And the teens are like, what the fuck? That's not how you play this game. And Worf's like, I don't know games. I only know hunting. Mm-hmm. So Worf tries to teach Talk how to throw a spear through a hoop. Wow, I have some spelling errors.
Yeah.
While
I wrote
moving.
A spear through a hool. A spear through a hoop. He kind of like Talk kind of gets it, but it's like kind of low key sloppy. Mm-hmm. But Worf's like, good enough. I'll take you on a hunt.
Yeah. No, I love it. He like, because the first shot the kid throws is like way off. Like,
yeah.
Like just so fucking off. And he gets it once, and Worf is like,
yeah, let's go hunting.
Yeah, you're ready for a hunt. Like, did it one time.
I mean that's the point. Worf is being manipulative, and he knows it.
And the next thing I wrote was, back on the Enterprise somewhere, Alexander is like, where's my dad?
Yeah.
So Worf wants to take Talk hunting, but he doesn't want to he goes to speak to Koth, and I think Lacor's in the scene. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't want to sit around the compound like an old man. Because he says he's got a...
Koth is in this scene. Or sorry, Lacor is in this scene.
But I just I couldn't help but laugh because Worf's like, I gotta practice my skills.
Yo, come on, do my skills.
But he gives his word as a warrior that he will not try to escape. Oh, right. Okay, now I remember this. And then Koth is like, sure. But Lacor is like, bro, I gave you my word 23 years ago, and have I ever broken it? And Koth is like, okay, whatever, listen, he's your problem now. And Lacor is like, okay, you guys can do it, but if Worf tries to escape, fucking kill him.
I think Lacor came around too fast in that scene.
I guess their word means a lot, but here's the thing. I was just like, why, if Worf wants to leave, why? Okay, you know what? Maybe I'll talk about this later. I feel like the easiest solution for this episode, and it's like all there, but they don't. It's just saying... be like, give your word that you're not gonna fucking say where you were, and just fucking leave. Why? What's the difference?
He's got the tracker on him,
so they can take the tracker out. And then he's like, I would give you my word. I will never tell anyone where you guys are, that this exists or anything. Because they do the exact same thing later on. Why couldn't Worf have done with use my word as a warrior now that I won't say anything and fucking let me go?
I don't...
Well, because at that point, he didn't know.
I don't think Worf would have made that promise. I don't think he would have been willing to make that promise,
to not tell anyone that they're there?
Yeah. Because he sees it as, an affront to everything. That, he wants to get them out of there. He wants to rescue them, I don't think at that point in the episode he would have been willing to like just let them like do their own thing.
That's fair. I know. I just was like, I feel like that would have been.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think like this episode's full of like people like not willing to compromise.
Yeah. Okay, so there's this one shot that I don't know what reference I'm thinking of, but I wrote Worf's facial hair reminds me of a fancy cartoon lobster. I think it's like his little mustache extensions, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, they're a little like. Oh, God,
I don't know what I'm thinking of, but
okay.
like
I don't know. I know this is like a problematic phrase, but I don't know how else to describe his mustache. But it's kind of like the Fu Manchu, where it's like only at the sides with the.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing.
Yeah,
It reminds me of like a catfish.
Okay.
Sorry.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Who's are we talking
Worf.
about? My bad. Oh, yeah. Did you know that if Worf and Hitler kissed, their mustache beards would never touch?
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry, it's a meme that I've seen go around the internet for years, and it's just... picturing it is very funny.
Oh, God. Oh. All right. Well, okay. Worf and Talk go out on their hunting trip, and... Okay, I'll be honest, I zoned out a little at this point. Mm-hmm. I just wrote, Worf is like, feel the wind or whatever, and you'll feel it in your blood.
Yeah.
And Talk is like psyched that he can feel his heart pounding. And then I just wrote, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal. I just was like, I don't care about hunting. I don't like hunting. Mm-hmm. So I just was like, can we just be done with this weird hunting stuff? Okay, I guess it's not weird. I just don't like it. If you like hunting, to each their own, I guess, but I don't like hunting. But yeah, Worf and Talk seem to be having a great time, though. They're, I don't know, hanging out. Okay, so then we cut to Lakor and Talketh, man, I don't know why I'm struggling with his name. Eating in
Toketh,
it's like
I think.
Toketh. They're eating in like I guess it's like their hall or cafeteria. I don't know. And Bella's like,
it's just like a group dining area.
Yeah. And she's just like, Father, if I wanted to go to Romulus or the Klingon home world, can I go? Mm-hmm. But Toketh is like saved from answering the question by a fucking dead animal that Talk brings in and slams onto the table. And he's like, look at me, look at my dead animal, look what I did. And then he goes, tonight we eat well. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. It doesn't, he's like, we gotta cook it. But I wrote, Talk has had a taste of freedom and his confidence has skyrocketed. He's feeling real fucking good about himself. And, but Toketh is like, take that shit off my table. And then Talk just starts like monologuing. He is his own hype man. Mm-hmm. He is just going to town.
He's acting like a Klingon.
Yeah, he's just going on about like, and Worf's just like standing over to the side, like, I did this. He.
Yeah, he's smirking. Yeah, over it.
Worf is like very proud of himself. So then Talk starts singing. He's like, "Oh, this is a lullaby," but apparently it's like a war or hunting song or whatever. And so he starts singing, and then like slowly other Klingons start to join in, and it's actually pretty cute. I liked everyone singing together. Mm-hmm.
Klingons gotta cling.
Yeah. Then Toketh is like, Worf, has there ever been another? Oh, okay. They have this is another scene. We cut to Worf, Toketh and Worf, and he's like, oh, has there ever been another time in history where Romulans and Klingons like just peacefully hang out together? No, it's just now and here, Worf. And so, Toketh is like, so he goes, no government, no leader has ever done what I have done here. And then Worf goes, and what about talk? I saw what happened to him when he caught the scent of his prey in on the wind. For the first time in his life, he felt powerful. And that is what he's been denied living here. And that is what you have tried to take away from him. Now you may be content to sit here in the jungle and wither out to old age. But Talk and the others have tasted what it is to feel truly alive. And they will not give that up now. And then Talketh goes, enough of this. We could talk all night and not convince each other. Yeah, that is... Yeah. But Talketh is like, Worf, listen, all that being said, here are your options. Live with us or fucking die. And Worf's like, Worf chooses to live free and die hard.
Yeah.
So then Bael goes to see Worf, and she's like, oh, I'll take the tracker out so you can escape. And Worf's like, oh, no, that's okay. And she says, they will try to kill you. And he says, yes, but they will not defeat me. And Bael goes, I don't understand you. And Worf says, a Klingon does not run away from his battles. And then Bael goes, is that really the lesson you want us to learn? You've taught us a great deal, awakened something inside us that we never knew existed. But I don't understand what we can learn from your death. She's fucking right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, Worf is really taking the wildest stance here. And then I wrote, no romance, please. No. Then Bael goes, oh, it's like you can talk endlessly about, like, honor and death and being a warrior. But, like, is love off the table? You talk about love. And Worf's like, well, I never thought I could fall in love with a Romulan. I'm like, Worf, you've known her for 2 days. Mm-hmm. Like, how?
Okay, it's TV.
I know.
It's always we've fallen in love,
but
and it's been like an hour.
But I hate, God, it's like, I wouldn't have thought of all people Worf would, like, fall so quickly. Like,
Yeah.
that surprised me a little bit. Like,
I mean, how quickly did he fall for Kalar?
she's incredible, but he knew her from before.
Yeah.
We don't know how much time he spent with her prior, because, I mean...
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair.
So I assume he spent a decent amount of time with her. Oh, God, may her memory be a blessing. God. I thought about her a lot during this episode. Yeah, because, like, I did not expect Worf to fall so quickly. Like, Geordi, yeah, of course. Riker, yeah. But, like, Worf... I don't know. This was surprising. I mean, I liked Belle. She was fine, but, like, yeah. Anyways, okay. So, she's like, oh, okay, because he's like, yeah, I'm in love with you, whatever. And she's like, okay, so, like, stay with me then. And Worf's like, how would I take you with me? But then she makes such a good point. And she's like, Worf, like, fucking where? Because, like, she's like, I don't fit in out there. Like, the Klingons are not going to accept me. The Romulans not going to accept me. I'm like, Worf, you barely fucking accept her.
Yeah.
Like, you love her, but still somehow, like, are totally, like, grossed out by her at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, like, Worf, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, she is... I don't know what... Yeah, he that was dumb. So,
I mean, the
Worf's
Federation
like, well,
wouldn't have an issue, I don't think.
Yeah, no,
That's
but
true,
just-
yeah.
Be fine.
Oh yeah, I guess so, but I don't think Worf was thinking about that per se. Worf's like, oh well, if I stay here, these Klingons will not accept me for what I am. I'm like, Worf, these are not comparable situations. You just, like, wanting to be like your full Klingonness is very different than her being fucking what is, like, just people probably treating her like shit because she is half Klingon, half Romulan. Like, that this is not the same struggle, Worf. This is not the same. And then she's like, oh, why did you come here? We were so happy. We didn't know what we were missing in our lives. And then they kiss, and I was like,
Yeah.
no. Okay, so now we are, I guess it's the next morning, and Worf is just standing in front of a wall like he's, like, ready for a firing squad, which I guess he is. And Toketh is like, I thought he was gonna, he starts giving a whole speech how he was like up and thinking. I was like, oh, is he gonna let him go? No, he's like, oh, I'm like very sure about this. You definitely should die for real. And so, yeah, this is when I was like, why doesn't Worf at this point just tell anyone to like, be like, oh, like, I give my word that I won't tell anyone. Just fucking let me leave. So that's when, like, at this point, this is when I was like, why doesn't he just do that? Because, like, they took him by his word before. Why wouldn't they take his word now? Yeah. This makes no sense. Ugh.
Because Worf isn't interested in surviving.
I know. Worf's an idiot.
Yeah.
So he does a whole speech, and then he's like, yeah, no, death is still the answer. So Worf goes, says, those are eloquent words, Tokoth, but the truth is, I am being executed because I brought something dangerous to your young people. Knowledge. There is more to that line, but I wanted to cut it off there because I thought that was so funny. He's like, I brought knowledge. So dangerous. I brought knowledge. Okay, so then the Romulans take their positions to execute Worf, but Tok comes in and he's like, if you kill him, you have to kill me first. Mm-hmm. And also he's in a like fun new outfit. I guess like more traditionally Klingon outfit. Mm-hmm. And
I'm Spartacus.
Yes, I was thinking about that too. So Tok is like, oh, I also want to leave, and also others want to leave, and you're gonna have to kill all of us to like keep us there. Mm-hmm. And Lacora's like, Tok, like fucking move. And then this was truly a wild choice in my opinion. So Lacora, he goes and stands on the other side of Tok.
Noticed that too.
And I was like, what does that do? Because isn't the point to like stand in front of Worf to protect Worf and be like, you got to get through me to get Worf? Bro, Worf.
Yeah, but it doesn't look as cinematically appealing.
It makes no sense though.
That was driving me nuts too. I'm like, not a single person has stood in front of Worf. Like they can easily still just shoot Worf. But then I realized at the end it's because what's-her-face needed to stand beside him.
Yeah, Belle, yeah. But yeah, I was like, why is Lacora standing on the other side of Tok? I feel like that defeats this whole statement they're all making there. Mm-hmm. But Tok, so then Tokoth raises the phaser himself, and everyone then, basically including Belle, joins Worf's side. And then, I don't know her name. I don't know Tokoth's wife / Belle's mom's name, but honestly, MVP of this episode, this lady. So she goes up to him and pushes like his arm down with the phaser, and she goes, long ago, when your captives asked to stay here, our hope was to avoid dishonoring our children on the home world. But perhaps over the years, we lost sight of our children that we raised here. This is our prison. It should not be theirs. Ooh. And then he's like, oh, fine, fucking leave. Well, he doesn't really say that, but he's just like, I guess I've been defeated by smart words from my wife.
Yeah. I do appreciate that it's like, that it's clear that he does actually love his wife, and that they both actually do love each other. And they don't imply that it's just some like Stockholm syndrome thing.
Yeah, I really like that. Then Worf, Worf then like, so he's got the whole group there. Then he steps out, and he goes, years ago, your parents made a great sacrifice for the sake of their families. Today, they do so again. For that, we must honor them. You must promise them never to reveal their secret. No one must know of this place. And I'm like, girl, why didn't you do this earlier?
Yeah. Well, because he had to learn lessons.
He had to learn his lesson. Yeah. I'm like, God, just Worf. So then Tok tells Worf that a supply ship will be there in a few days, and like Tokoth will like explain the situation and take them with them. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, Worf looks really bewildered at that information. I don't know why. Maybe it was just like a weird acting choice, but he just makes this like face, like he's like, what?
Yeah. Maybe I interpret it as he's surprised that Tokoth would help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then now, back with the Enterprise. Picard's like, oh, Worf sent us a message to meet at a Romulan vessel at this rendezvous point. And, so then they take the kids on board. And Picard was like, well, you find what you were looking for? And Worf's like, there was no prisoner camp. These are survivors of a vessel. The kids are survivors of a vessel that crashed 4 years ago. And then he goes, no one survived, Kittimer. And Picard goes, I understand. But he basically, like, Star Wars'd him. Or I guess Obi-Wan'd him.
I love you. I know.
Oh, no, the...
No, I think Picard is like...
I know.
I know.
He knows.
I know.
I'm not talking about you, Jeff.
I know. No, I know Picard knows, but like the way that Worf is the kids are
it is very, these aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah. But then Picard mixes it up with some Princess Leia.
Yeah.
So it's Obi-Wan and Leia, I guess.
Yeah.
What I told you is true from a certain point of view.
So, yeah, that was an interesting episode. Not my favorite.
Yeah.
But
I
not
feel like
it's not
worst.
very many people's favorite.
Yeah. I feel...
It's not the worst, but
Yeah.
it's... I don't need to see it again. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah. I feel like the episode sides with Worf a little too much. 'Cause, like...
So the episode definitely sides with Worf, but it doesn't do a good job of making Worf seem like he is invariably the hero.
Yeah.
Except when the Romulan is like, well, no, I'm going to have to kill several of you now towards the end. And, like, it's good that he changes his mind, but he was ready to.
Yeah.
And I don't think this character that they introduced would have done that. That said... when the character is making the argument that, like, what I've done here is important, like, I've created a piece that exists nowhere else in the universe, and it's like, yeah, but you had to completely eliminate people's culture to do that, which is assimilation.
And committed war crimes for this.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the episode, like, I 100% agree with you. Because, like, the Toketh basically, like, colonized them.
Yeah. Now, that said, the episode was written by somebody who 100% had that in mind.
Yeah.
His parents were Cuban immigrants.
Yeah.
And he felt like he assimilated into the United States, and they had all of this culture that they left behind.
Yeah. It's just I agree with that, and I think Worf was right to try to tell them about their culture and stuff. I just think the way he went about it, like, it just was like, it was tinged with, like, anti-Romulan racism, and
yes.
I feel like the episode didn't address it well enough. That he was, like, he wasn't doing this out of a place of, like, he just couldn't stand that, like, they were getting along with the Romulans. At least that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And
that's definitely a take that that the episode doesn't do enough to really put down, unfortunately.
And yeah. 'Cause, like, you can't really, it's hard to, like, evaluate if you're not part of a culture. It don't really have much right to say, like, the problems within the culture. Like, it's not really your place and stuff, so I feel weird saying this, but, like, also, like, not everything in Klingon culture is so great. Like, they should have definitely known about their culture and their history and stuff, but, like, also, like, it's a good thing that they didn't pass down the, like, hatred to the next generation, too. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Because that is, like, pretty baked into Klingon culture.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That said, knowing the background of this episode, knowing that it's written by somebody whose family were Cuban immigrants, there's definitely like they would have seen some pretty shitty treatment in the U.S. During the era that he was growing up, because it would have been all of this anti-communist sentiment, and it's very similar in that it's all like propagandized to the point where it became part of United States culture.
Yeah.
To simply be reactionary against anybody who comes from a communist country. And so you have this allegory there that I'm not sure the episode really does an excellent job of addressing 100%, because it's also in a situation where these people like didn't choose to assimilate, really. Like it's dealing with the first generation children who were lied to about what they are their entire life.
Yeah.
And the more awkward part about it is they're being introduced to it by a guy who is inherently dishonest in the way he's presenting himself, because Worf is presenting himself as this, like pure example of Klingon culture, and while he very much sees himself like that, he doesn't even mention that he's part of the Federation. Like when they end up on the transporter pad on the Enterprise at the end, you see the kid literally looking around bewildered, like, excuse me, where the fuck am I?
Yeah, and you'd think that like Worf of all people would understand being a Klingon who doesn't like totally fit within Klingon culture, and like a Klingon who has issues with Klingon culture and stuff like that.
Yes.
And that like he feels like there's improvements to be made,
I feel like though this was like Worf felt like it was his time to shine, if he was the superior knowledge on Klingon shit.
Yeah.
So like he wasn't going to like show the like, or he would not have said that he grew up on Earth. He, grew up with human parents. That I don't think this was his time of like, oh, I'm the expert. I know all this shit. So I'm just going to go fucking hard and ham at this.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, though, it's like Worf, I think Worf is an example of like sort of how to do it right. Because like even though like Worf like still struggles with, feeling like he's really a Klingon and all that stuff, like it's very clear that his parents did everything they could, like, to keep him connected to his culture.
I love his parents.
Yeah, and they still instilled in him like a bunch of human values because they're human and all that stuff. But they definitely made sure that he knew of his culture and their stories, and they clearly like. I don't know if they actively encouraged him, but they at least like, were supportive of him pursuing those things.
I wonder if that was also something that for Worf was like why he was so surprised that like they didn't know shit, is because he didn't grow up in an environment where like, he was surrounded by Klingons, but he still was able to learn all this stuff.
Yeah.
And these kids grew up in an environment where there were Klingons and they did not know shit.
Yeah.
So,
I think, you know what, now that we're talking about it, I am siding with Worf a lot more now. Like,
I think it's a bit of a mixed thing.
Yeah, not that I was ever against his way of things. I think the way he went about it, I don't think he fully appreciated like how disruptive it would be, and that like when it comes to these things, it's like you can't just go full ham and be like I'm gonna turn you into like fully Klingons now.
Like, this is culture shock.
Yes, yeah. It's very shocking,
them.
and like they're not gonna do this in a Star Trek episode, but like in reality, like there are some people who like probably couldn't handle it, and it would like really fuck up their lives, which is like, it's not an excuse to like keep the truth from them, but it's like you know, they talk about the Prime Directive all the time. It's like, if you're going to introduce a culture into something like this, it has to be done delicately, and Worf is far from delicate in this episode.
Yeah. Worf,
yeah, he's really just hamming it in.
Yeah. Worf, he just, this would have been the time to sort of ease into this information, but he was
I
like
think...
full force, ran straight at the wall.
Yeah, I that's exactly it, because I've been having trouble, like, really articulating my exact issue with Worf in this episode, and that's what it is that he just, like, I know he probably doesn't have, like, the circumstances, like, may not fully allow for that, but yeah, that's my issue, is he doesn't ease anyone into this. He's just like, you guys are doing it wrong, and I'm gonna show you how to do it right, and without any regard for, like, the sort of social consequences.
Yeah, because, like, he thinks that everything the Klingons, like, do, like, that's like the Klingon way is the right way, when it's obviously, like, it's you know what kills me though is, like, we've come so far with Worf, even in, like, the last episode where, like, and even at the beginning of this episode when he was like, I almost said Okur. Oh my god, we had a thing at work today. Anyways, it's not important. But LaCour was like, like, why did you come here? Wouldn't you not have been, like, real bummed to see your dad? But Worf was like, no, I'd be, like, actually very psyched to see my dad. Like, I wouldn't feel shame for that. Like, that would actually be amazing to have seen my dad. And then goes to, I'm gonna just die for this instead of just, being whatever this situation is. Where it wasn't like, Worf can, like, immediately, like, I mean, it might, I'm not entirely sure if it was like them be like, Worf cold turkey stop teaching them about Klingon stuff, or like can maybe like tell a couple of Klingon things here and there. I'm not sure. They weren't super clear about which, if it was like full out like, Worf shut the fuck up, or like or just like maybe calm the fuck down, Worf. But
you're totally right, because that was like such a, like, he's coming here spouting all this, like, being true Klingon stuff, yet he has, at the beginning of the episode, an extremely un-Klingon, like, not reaction, but sort of, like, attitude towards if his dad was still alive.
Yeah, so the fact that, like, then he was like, Worf goes from 0 to 60 in every fucking direction in this episode. He's like, those, like, 5-point stars that you make as, like, a kid where, like, you can do it in one, like, without taking your pencil off the page.
Yeah, like yes.
That, or those, like, or the, like, the little house design thing that you do with, like, the X. Yeah, that was Worf this episode, where he just did not stop and went from one thing to the other in just, like, there was no chance for it to be like, Worf, can you fucking stop for a second? Yeah. He just made one, like, bold decision after, just, like, kept going, like, full speed ahead in every way, just, like, bam, 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 and did not. Yeah, and he was like, I don't know, I almost feel like he wouldn't. It made me wonder, like, I thought about Alexander during this episode, because I just was like, because he was doing things with, like, talk that I imagine he will do with Alexander one day, of, like, the hunting. And I did like that Worf was, like, very, like, good with talk. Like, he wasn't like, oh, well, you fucking sucked at throwing the spear through the hoop, you fucking dummy. He was like, oh no, like you could do it, and like, oh, like he barely makes it, and he's like, good enough, we're gonna go hunting. And he went to, like, actually want to teach him, and I think Worf had good intentions, but like, a breath would have been good. Worf just like,
I think there was, for me, I don't feel like there was enough acknowledgement that their way of life wasn't, like, 100% bad.
Oh, the people on the planet?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, they seem to be, like, honestly pretty good.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that, like, I 100% think that what they did was wrong in sort of, like, keeping the truth from their kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's one of the things I appreciate about this episode is that, like, no one is really 100% wrong or 100% right in this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just seemed like, I don't know, maybe it's just infused, like, from my own bullshit where I just don't like that he was trying to force it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's less to do with, like, it's not so much cultural stuff. It's more like, I just don't like someone coming in and trying to force you to be a certain way.
Yeah, pushing beliefs, saying, like, well, you are this way, therefore you have to have these beliefs. You have to think this way.
Yeah.
You have to do all this stuff. Whereas, like, these are people that grew up in a different environment. They don't have, just because they are Klingon, doesn't mean they have to do this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have to, like...
Yeah.
It's not fucking mandatory.
Yeah. Like, I think that they are definitely owed, like...
Apologies? Yes.
Yeah, they're owed apologies. They're owed their stories. They're owed their traditions. They're owed, like, the truth and stuff like that.
But they're at their own pace, though. Holy shit.
But, like, it's not... Yeah. And I think if, like... In not to be 100%, like, I'm not even trying to be, like, super against Worf in this, but, like, just because I've been taking the position in that what he was doing is not, like, wasn't 100%, like, super chill. I think that, you know, maybe Worf was pushing it hard because, the people there were so resistant and, like, they didn't want like their kids to know anything, so Worf was just like, he kind of had to push a bit harder.
Because, like, I feel like Worf went as hard as he did because he felt superior that he had this knowledge and they did not, and finally he got to be the one with the Klingon knowledge amongst Klingons.
Yeah.
Like, he never gets to have that kind of, be in that position. Mm-hmm. But I found it interesting that, like, and I mean, they do eventually kind of, well, sort of address it. These are just, like, other people making all these decisions for these kids.
Yeah.
And they're not even really kids. Like, these are still adult. They're, like, young adults. But, like, the parents decided not to tell them the truth and make up a whole, you know, fantasy of what happened. The war.
Yeah.
And Worf made the decision to tell them all this shit without, like, just for his own decision. Not, he was like, oh, you want to hear about this? It's like, I'm going to tell you about this.
Yeah.
And then it really, like, I said earlier, like, it's fucking confusing for these kids.
Yeah.
To, like, they never got a say in any of the information they were given, and they're just being told from one end that they're been lied to their whole lives, or and this is how things should be, and it's from someone who is, like, not their family, not, like, they barely, Worf's there for, like, 2 days.
Yeah. And, like, and that's the thing, is, like, I don't even think that if you find out that, like, someone's been lied to their whole life, I don't think it's necessarily, if you feel the need to tell them, like, 100%, like, I don't disagree with that. But it's like, you have to do it so carefully, and
yep, you sure do.
Worf, I don't think it doesn't feel like he has any regard for that in this episode.
Oh, I agree.
And understanding the perspective it comes from, like, I kind of get why they did it that way. It's just, unfortunately, the way it comes off, like, is just, like, yeah, he doesn't really, like, he just wants to project his beliefs, and he doesn't really have, like, all that concern for these people's values.
Unrelated, but I just remembered Worf was actually there for about 3 days because I remembered in last episode Shrek said that he'll be back in like 50 hours, I think.
Yeah.
And then Picard said that it's been 12 hours since their rendezvous point. So that's 662 hours. And then they had like a day after. It's been like 3 days.
Wow. Look at you remembering stuff and doing that.
Yeah, I know. Look at me go. Sorry, yeah, that just like popped into my head. I'm like, okay, technically it's maybe 3 days. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, Worf had 3 days to corrupt all these children.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm in it to win it.
Yeah. That being said, so I just want to make it clear, I'm not against like the sort of message they were going for in this episode. I don't think they presented it the best way.
Agreed. Yeah, I think like it's
the episode falls flat in a lot of ways, unfortunately, by not really taking a stance, but also not having like a particularly good allegory to base itself off of. Like, it does have an allegory, but it's not taking a stance either way on that allegory.
Yeah, because especially with like with the writer's history, because being like someone whose parents immigrated and you feel disconnected from your culture is not really the same thing as like, I mean, I don't know what his parents did. Like maybe his parents did lie about like, you know, the circumstances of how they ended up in the States or whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, the allegory doesn't really, it doesn't really translate to this, the circumstances in this episode where they're like, for all intents and purposes, they're cut off. Like they have supply ships and stuff come, but they're pretty isolated community. And yeah, basically just agreeing with the point you're making, that the allegory doesn't quite get there, doesn't quite translate.
Yeah, I actually, when I was writing my notes for it, I pointed out partway through that like I wasn't sure what the allegory was supposed to be yet with this outsider coming in and introducing culture to these people. I'm like, there isn't really an allegory for that, so it's very much a hypothetical in that regard. And then when I found out the detail about like what inspired him, I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
Yeah.
It's just that he didn't take a particularly strong stance with regard to what to do with that, as he framed both sides to be quite sympathetic. And it's funny because Michael Piller looked at the episode because like he was show running when he was going through like when they were going through the scripting process, and he was like, hey, you know, I like this story, but he didn't see it the way that that it eventually came out. He saw it as if Worf was kind of an allegory to Malcolm X, in that he was coming in there and saying like, no, like, you are Klingons, you have to embrace what you are. Yeah. Because that's the only way that our culture survives, and that's the way that Michael Piller saw it. And I don't necessarily dislike that take. I wish it had come off more like that.
Yeah, because that's because it didn't really feel like. I guess they were, yeah.
Because I have another proposal of what. Oh, sorry, Maggie, continue.
Oh no, I was gonna say, because it doesn't really feel like because the Malcolm X stuff came out of like oppression and stuff like that. Like, don't try to like at least from what I remember, like it's more of like, you know, don't conform, you know, rather than like.
Yeah, and I mean, in this case, he's introducing that to people who have already, like, their entire lives have been conforming, and they don't know any better. But at the same time, like, this was during the scripting process, not the final like shooting process. So his view on that could be a little colored by like what the episode looked like. There was a full 7 minutes of character footage that was cut out for time. One of them was a particularly heated conversation between Worf and Ja'Ral about her marrying a Romulan.
Yeah.
And another one was a lot more character stuff between Worf and Bale.
Yeah, okay. I feel like that would have probably added to it a lot.
I agree, and I wish that that kind of information, like what exactly went down, or like even what the script said, were somewhere out there more available. But I mean, yeah.
Okay, hear me out. This just occurred to me. Worf is a stranger in a strange land.
No,
he's not. This is the dumbest thing I could have possibly come up with for this scenario, but hear me out. Worf is Moses. He's there to guide his people.
Let my people
he leaves
go.
an exodus. Yeah, because Tokath is the pharaoh, and he's like, let my people go.
Yeah,
and he leads them on an exodus.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It doesn't really make sense, but I was like, there's a little bit there. It's obviously not what it represents, but
yeah. I'm having a debate in my head because, like, I was thinking,
I still think it low key tracks.
Yeah,
but it's not obviously what it's not supposed to represent, obviously. But some little things match up.
Yeah, I'm having a debate in my head because I was thinking more about like the Malcolm X thing and stuff like that, because like that is sort of what's happened with like black people in America, is that like they're lied to about history. Their culture was stripped from them, and forced to conform,
and their culture is actively discouraged.
Yeah, actively discouraged. It's just and then I thought like, and then I was thinking about like, well, what makes this different? And I was thinking like, well, in this episode, it's like, it's not, they weren't like, the erasure and stuff wasn't happening because of like malice. Like, they weren't trying to oppress them. They were like parents trying to shield their children like from something they thought was dangerous and stuff. And then I had a debate about like, well, it was a lot of oppressive things have been done because like people thought that it was helpful, or like, I mean, based on like really fucked up bullshit stuff, like, when like the government and the Catholic Church and stuff were like doing residential schools and shit, like they posited as like, well, we're saving them from their like savage lifestyle and stuff, and they thought it was like a good thing, obviously not, very fucked up based on like really fucked ideas and stuff. But it's still not quite the same thing. It's not like...
I mean, I would argue, in defense of that point, actually, that very, very few people, especially those in power, see themselves as the villain when they're doing something like that. There are so many examples in history,
villains
the history of colonization.
Don't see themselves as the villain. Like, villains are the heroes of their own story.
But there's so many examples in the history of colonization, especially with the way that we learn about the way that people talked about other races, 50, 75, 100, 150, whatever years ago, and it was always as superior outsiders looking upon specimens, and they had simply never been taught to think of it any other way. And in this case, you have the Romulans looking down on the Klingons and thinking the only way to make peace here is to erase the Klingon culture. And since we're in charge, we can make them do that. And like you heard him in the episode quite flatly say, nowhere else in the universe does a place like this exist where Romulans and Klingons can live in peace. And I have done this.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think this situation also came out of him thinking that Klingon ways are barbaric.
He definitely thinks that,
Yeah.
You can see it when he's disgusted by the dead animal being placed at the dinner table.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay, I've come around on this now. I think I sort of agree with seeing it that way. I still think that Worf should have handled it with more delicacy than that. Like I think he was still a little too pushy with it. But I don't have as big a problem with it anymore as we're talking it out. I feel.
Yeah, okay, that's understandable.
Yeah. So does anyone have anything else to bring up before we move on?
No.
Okay, I think it's fair to move on to favorite moments and lines.
I liked that Worf was like, oh yeah, I'd be totally happy to see my dad if he was here. I liked that Worf said he brought them the most dangerous thing in knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, ideas are often seen as the biggest threat.
Yeah, I just love that Worf just goes knowledge. I just like that. I liked that. I don't know. I don't know her name, but Belle's mom. I like she basically saved the day at the end.
Jaral, I think.
Jaral? Yeah, she basically saved the day at the end. MVP, good job for her. And I like that Worf was like nice to the kids, like, well, to talk. I wasn't a big fan of his relationship with Bael, but
yeah.
I like that he was like encouraging to talk, to be like, hey, you can fucking do it, and look, let's go hunting and shit. So I guess that was something.
Come on, son, let's go kill a deer.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know. This wasn't like I like Worf, but yeah, this isn't like, it kind of goes all over the place for me in this episode. So yeah, I guess that's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like, because I like that. I like that idea of like, you know, exploring more of like, you know, these people who are like disconnected from their culture and like what it's like to deal with that, like, you know, after having already grown up like in a totally different way. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have like a favorite moment or line like this. And that's not like a and that's not like a criticism. It's just like nothing really striked me, you know, as all that memorable, I guess. Which I guess is a criticism, but I do like the little interaction he has with Picard at the end, where Picard's like, I understand. I get it.
I liked when the kid struts in carrying like a dead deer or something like that, or a dead goat or whatever it's supposed to be, alien goat.
Yeah.
And he's just got like this big grin on his face, and he starts talking like the most cocky Klingon. I find that really amusing. But also at the beginning when Lokar is his name? Dory, help me out here. Lokar? Locale?
Oh yeah.
Lokar? Okay.
Lakar.
I like when
Lakor.
Sorry, when him and Worf are having that conversation at the beginning, and Worf's being kind of heartwarming about his father, and Lakor just comes back at him like if my son were here, I would hope that he'd be Klingon enough to kill me. And I'm like, man, you're fucking dark, buddy.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking about it now, and I feel like I think it's a little hard for me to, like, connect with the message of this episode because, like, my parents are immigrants, and I'm first-generation Canadian, but I've always had, like, a lot of connection to my culture. And, like, parents, like, were definitely never, like, you know, like, I'm definitely Canadian, and I'd say I'm Canadian more than Polish, but I always had, like, a strong connection and knowledge of, like, my culture and stuff. So it's hard for me to imagine not having that.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
And,
I get that too. I grew up very much with it, like, with a lot of education and being very immersed in my culture, and yeah, it's hard to escape it.
yeah.
Not that I want to per se escape it. It just is, like, very intrinsically part of you that just I can't imagine not knowing about.
And in my case, I have no culture.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
That's not
I don't have any what do you call it? All of the connection that I've done with my background, ancestral culture, and whatnot has been through my dad kind of, like, learning things and embracing it himself over the years. And none of it is really us actually learning it from, like, proper channels or, like, people teaching us through it or anything. He's finding out, like, oh, this is a Ukrainian day. Okay. Oh, these are Ukrainian foods. Okay, we'll eat those on the Ukrainian day and things like that. And like, now I have this actually Ukrainian partner who grew up in Ukraine, and she's just like, oh, that's not how we do this. That's not how we do this. Oh, that's not how we do this. We're like, oops.
Yeah. So you're actually a little closer to the people in this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're kind of disconnected from it in terms of, like, ethnically, because, like, you know, Canadian is a culture. Like, it's like, you know, people say we have no culture, but there is, like,
it's Shoppers Drug Mart and Tim Hortons.
Yeah, there is a culture. There's, like, a
hockey.
There's a shared set of values and traditions and
there
shit
is,
like
but
that.
it is very melting pot culture as well.
You know,
the Tim. Yeah, it's the Tim Hortons at the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah. But I think also, like, especially, like, Canada and Toronto specifically, like, the whole idea is for it to be, like, a melting pot, and, like, not in Canada we like to say mosaic rather than melting pot. But, like, yeah, it is a combo of all these things, which I think is equally as valid, you know. And, you know, if you're not, like, I'm not of the mind that, like, you know, if you're of, like, a certain ethnicity that, like, you know, you have to engage in the culture of that ethnicity necessarily. Like, I think you should, like, know about it and all that stuff, but, like, you know, it's not, like, I don't think if you're, like, if you don't engage with it or whatever, like, I don't think it's, like, necessarily a bad thing. As long as it's, like, you're kind of coming from you, like, it's not, like,
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, I'm more involved in, like, the culture part of my background versus other aspects of it. I don't super participate in, like, certain parts of it because I don't believe in parts of it. But there's a big part of, like, the culture that is, like, you grow up with it so ingrained in you, and just more than even the other aspects is just the culture of shit and, like, the history and just
Because, like, I feel like sometimes, like, I feel like sometimes it like, things are a little, like, if you're American or Canadian or whatever, I think, like, sometimes things, like, it's treated a little too dismissive, like, the cultures and traditions we have, like, as Canadians. I feel like sometimes doesn't really get the proper credit as, you know, a unique culture and stuff.
Oh, like how Canadian Thanksgiving is in October?
Yeah. But, like,
I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I do think that it's funny that it's such a point of discourse.
Yeah. It's, but, like, you know, you say, like, hockey and Tim Hortons and stuff like that, and, like...
I'm being silly.
Yeah, it's a joke, but it's also, like... Yeah, we've created this whole thing around hockey and, like, around our Thanksgiving and, like, you know, certain foods and, like, the fact that we have such a mixed culture of all these different ethnicities and stuff that, like, makes up, like, a pretty unique thing all on its own, the combination of all that stuff. You know, so I think like that deserves, like, you know, to I know it's tangled up with, like, colonization and all that stuff too. So, like, I don't think it's like, oh, we should praise it or whatever, but, like, I think it needs more acknowledgement that, yeah, being, like, it's valid if your culture is Canadian, because it is a unique thing in itself. You know,
I find it frustrating because I think that Canadians in general, we're getting off topic, but yeah. I think that Canadians in general think of our culture as either one of two things. Either people are in one camp where they're just like, there isn't really much there, or they're in the other camp. Then it's like, no, we have a very, very strong culture, and a lot of it comes down to defining ourselves in contrast to the United States, which, I'm sorry, comparing us to another culture that overshadows us isn't really a culture in of itself. But my main issue... It's
definitely a distinct part of the Canadian identity is comparing yourself to Americans.
Which I don't necessarily think of as a positive thing, but anyway...
No, but it is. It's not a positive thing, but it is a unique characteristic of being Canadian.
So the reason I bring it up is because my partner asked me if, like, what are some Canadian foods that I haven't tried yet, and I had to sit there and sit with like a mouth hanging open thing for a moment, and I'm just like, there isn't very much.
Yeah,
we don't have much to offer. And I felt kind of sad about that. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are Canadian and probably pay attention to this podcast, you know, all three of you, and can be like, no, we have, well, and there really isn't very much. Like, you can go and look on a top 25 list, and half of those things will just be like, oh, that's ketchup chips, that doesn't count.
Well, here's the thing, is, like, people, like, you say that, but, like, so many cultures are defined by their food. Like, why shouldn't it, like, why should it be a joke that ketchup chips are, like, you know, unique to Canada?
Because it's not something that was invented by Canada. It's something that was invented by the Lay's Corporation and happens to be marketed here as well as several other countries, but we're just somewhat famous for it because we get compared to the United States so often.
Yeah, but, like, a lot of Polish food is inspired by French shit because the royalty decided to have French chefs.
Yeah, I know. But like, that's worked its way down. You don't go to a restaurant and order Lay's ketchup chips.
But Canadians made ketchup chips popular.
Canadians bought them.
We're the ones who decide... Yeah, we're the ones that decided this suits our tastes.
Okay.
So we decided to make it a thing. I'll tell you what is a Canadian thing. Maple syrup.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I found a list. I found a quick list.
Mm-hmm.
Poutine, bannock.
I hate that bannock is on that list.
Butter tarts apparently are Canadian. I don't know anything
because
about it.
It's not like a unique Canadian dish. It's a kind of bread, which is fine. That's not a problem. But it's always described as if
cultures
it's
are defined by their bread.
But it's always described as if
which
you can
actually
find
leads
it
me to the
everywhere.
next
And I'm
one.
like, I've basically never been to a store that sells it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think
it
is important to be on that list because it is specifically like it's part of indigenous culture.
That's fair.
And it is uniquely part of indigenous culture because of oppressive colonization, because the reason Bannock came to be was because it was easily made out of like the rations that like were given to indigenous people on like reserves and shit.
Okay, that's fair. That I didn't know.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh no, sorry. You continue your thought.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think it's like, yeah, it's not a thing that's like ubiquitous, but I think it is an important thing to mention when you're talking about like uniquely Canadian things.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we're talking about bread, the next one on the list is Montreal style bagels, which I personally do not like. Mm-hmm. They're a little too like, I don't know. They just give me the like New York or like Toronto style. Give me bagels every day over. And my family's from Montreal, and my dad fucking loses his mind over the Montreal bagels. But like, no, I don't care for them. Then there's Timbits, Montreal style smoked meat. So I guess it's just Montreal stuff. Montreal smoked meat is fucking legit though.
Yeah.
Nanaimo bars.
Yeah, I love a Nanaimo bar.
Those are freaking good.
Did you say butter?
Bloody Caesars?
Oh,
yeah, I said butter tart also earlier.
Yeah, Caesars are a uniquely Canadian thing, apparently. I did not know this for the longest time, but yeah. Because in the States they have Bloody Marys, which is a Caesar but without the Clamato juice.
Yeah.
And when you have a Bloody Mary, you realize the Clamato juice does a lot of heavy lifting. Because it is not as good. Anyway.
Well, I guess we can say there's some Canadian foods.
Did you say butter tarts?
I did say butter tarts.
Yeah.
It frustrates
There's
me that
also,
none of those are like a dish.
Well, there's also Quebec has a lot.
Listen,
Yeah.
a smoked meat sandwich.
Yeah,
that
okay,
could be
sorry.
a,
Smoked
that could be
meat
a dish.
sandwich is the one you can eat as like a full meal. Poutine, I guess you can eat as a full meal. And
There's also
listen, you're hungry enough for butter tarts? That can be a full meal.
Yeah, I think there's also tartin. Is a Quebec thing. It's like a big meat pie.
yeah, that's true.
What other Canadian things? That's again the thing that is uniquely Canadian is that a lot of our, I don't think it gets enough credit, is that a lot of our food is like a mixture of different ethnic foods.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
so
that's
like
true.
ginger beef was invented in like Calgary, I think.
Oh, okay.
If not Calgary, somewhere in Alberta. Butter chicken roti is a uniquely Toronto invention because butter chicken and roti are from two vastly different parts of India.
Right.
So like the combination, is something that uniquely happened here because like a lot of Indian people from different parts of India are all like kind of, in the same neighborhoods here. So they mix their stuff together like what else? Another uniquely Toronto thing is sushi pizza, which like I didn't realize that's basically doesn't exist outside the GTA.
Yeah, that's sadly true.
And for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it sounds disgusting, but it really, it's not what you think it is. It's really fucking good. It's a deep fried rice patty with raw salmon on top with spicy mayo and roe, like the fish eggs. And it's really fucking good. Curry pad thai, also a Toronto thing I discovered. Yeah. There's other examples, but there's a lot of there's a lot of examples where it's like something that's like an ethnic food, but it's actually more of like a specific, like, it's based on the people that like moved here. Like, I think a well-known example at this point is that Chinese food is different from Chinese American food.
Yeah, I know that.
And I think that it's, I think it doesn't get enough credit for being unique to North America. No. And like, you know, that it is like, yeah, it's specifically part of like Chinese American culture and stuff, but that does add to the overall American culture, because like American Chinese food is very like sort of ubiquitous even amongst many ethnicities within here. It's just, I think the uniqueness of having like such like so like I'm talking about Canada and the US, like the uniqueness of having these countries that are like, you know, via like really terrible circumstances are like purely made up of like they're immigrant countries where it's not like they don't, I'm trying to, because I'm trying to acknowledge that like, you know, the indigenous culture should be the native and unique culture to this area of the world. But it is unfortunately hasn't worked out that way. It should have been that way, but it's not currently. But I think that, you know, you can totally agree that it's like fucked up, but I don't think it gets enough credit, like that we do actually have our own unique culture, and it kind of like just gets tossed as a joke, you know, when it's like, no, like, you know, we actually do have our own identity.
Okay.
I don't know if any of that made sense, but yeah. Anyway, I just think like people, like stuff gets dismissed a little too readily when it comes to like culture in North America. All right, so after all that rambling, I got us off on a tangent. Let's move on to predictions for the next episode. So, the next episode is called Starship Mine. And your tidbit is that Picard ends up on the Enterprise alone after trying to avoid a boring party.
Classic.
Yep.
Okay.
He gets stuck on the Enterprise alone.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that's a bummer, and I feel like he'd be very happy with that. He would just sit and read or some shit. Unless people want to go up to it, and they can't. Everyone's locked out except for him. Okay.
I legit forgot about the party plot, and I am so excited for that.
Me too.
I'm hoping because there's a party, that means people are going to be dressed up. I want Picard in his formal. I want everyone in their formal wear. Maybe they want Picard to do a speech, and he's like, "For sure, I'll do a speech," and then he Irish exits.
He just pieces out.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm not fucking doing a speech."
But Picard loves to do a speech. Well,
yeah, but
no,
maybe
he loves to do a monologue.
Yes. It's probably, my guess is it's for, people are putting attention on him for something he doesn't like. Because there's times where, like, yeah, he'll take the attention, but, like, there's a lot of time people give him, like, I feel like he gets uncomfortable with, like, too much credit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he definitely isn't too into praise.
Yeah, so I feel like they want him to give a whole speech on something he's not super, like, doesn't feel like he either earned or he like knows enough about, or he just is like, no, but like slips away to the Enterprise. And maybe someone on the out, because he's by himself, so maybe someone a light entity. No, I'm kidding. I'm just thinking, like, why would because I'm going to assume he doesn't, like, lock down the Enterprise or whatever. So I would assume maybe someone else assumed that everyone was going to be off, so this was, like, the perfect time to, like, get something from there, or to, like, hack maybe someone's hacking the computers from outside, which is why Picard can't leave, or can't, like, he ends up by himself on there and no one can get on, no one can get off, because someone else has control over the Enterprise, because they want some shit from it. They want some data, not data. Or they want some data. Maybe a data heist, but not of data. And was it an info dump? That doesn't make sense. A reverse info dump? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think is that enough?
Yeah, I think that's enough.
That's what I'll go with. Yeah.
Right. If you want to see if Dory's correct, watch along with us and join us for the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.